Hello and welcome to the Old Garage number 32. I'm Wild Bill and got a few questions for you, an absurd silliness, and also a really cool shout out. So let's get to it. First question I have here is from the episode, the VCA special on automotive glass, and Nosotros los lobos estamos regresando, which means we the wolves are returning, kind of ominous. Well, he asks, do you have some stats on how much the glass-related death rate dropped? Well, the short answer is no, but let me explain why. And it's because that when you're looking at, the 1890s, 1900s, prior to World War I, you really only had two basic institutions that would have reason to look at that information. One would be your civil governments, your Bureau of Public Safety or your Department of Transportation or whatever in whatever country you're from would call it. Now, they would have reason to gather information like that. Also, the other institution that would be insurance companies, which, that's how they make their living, is by creating statistics. Problem is that neither one of these organizations were really looking at that specific information prior to World War I. And by the time you get after World War I, safety glass had already been invented and was pretty much universal. So what we do have is rather empirical. You can go and find newspaper articles in local newspapers about traffic accidents. You can look at individual old hospital reports, etc. So we know that, the problems of glass shattering, was serious on windshields, and so many cars just simply didn't offer them. Or if they did, these were cars that moved very slowly anyway, like your electric cars that only went maybe 20 miles an hour at most. So, and there were exceptions to that, of course, but in reality, no, there aren't any real stats of any significance regarding safety versus non-safety glass that dates from the era. So, okay. Next question that I have was on the episode, again, same episode on the glass. And this was from Bruno Waters, I think, Waters, Bruno, yeah. And he mentioned that he had a 1600cc Audi i100, and the windshield got hit by a stone. And it went from one moment to transparent to translucent. Do modern windshields still go milky after a hit? Well, there's really two types of milky, and I'll address them both. There were, at some points, some car companies that did make tempered safety glass windshields. And this didn't last long. They were typically the flat ones, like you mentioned on your... that you talked about with your Volkswagen. But the thing is that tempered glass is the glass that just becomes like little marbles when it breaks. And then in tempered safety glass, it becomes marbles that stay in place. That's what is found in your side windows on your car today is tempered safety glass. Your rear window is usually going to be tempered safety glass, but on a modern car, the front window is not going to be tempered safety glass. It's just going to be safety glass because it's the tempering that makes glass break into those little tiny pieces. And when that happens, yeah, you're going to go milky. You're going to go all crazy. If you have that situation, you won't be able to see a thing. Now, the safety glass, modern safety glass, if it gets cracked, hits with a stone or something, and it really depends on what type of polymer they're using to coat the glass and how well it was manufactured, because the milky situation that can happen is when the polymer gets perforated and then it starts to peel away from the glass. And you can get intrusions in there, water can get in there, air, dust, debris, whatever. And also, now you've got the polymers no longer affixed to the window, so it gets kind of cloudy and weird looking. That can happen. I mean, it's rare. I mean, nowadays, I mean, it'd have to be a really cheap car to do that on a modern windshield. But it could happen. But it's going to be one of those two. Either it was tempered or it just was not a well-made safety glass and the polymers separated, which, can happen. In fact, that was fairly common back in the 30s and 40s, which is why a lot of those old cars, have the milkiness. They also have the browning because the polymers would age as well. So there you go. And now I have another question that came from the Harold Wills episode, and this was from Tony Simi. And he asked, he mentions he's owned and driven Fords most of my life. I said, I've had I think 8 Fords myself. So yeah. If you were to choose a Ford as a hobby car, what car would you choose? It has to be 1979 and earlier. Oh, that's easy for me. 1906 Ford Model K. And here's why. This car has some great history behind it. You see, 1905, 1906, this is the time when Henry Ford is in the throes of his lawsuit with George Selden, regarding the whole patent issue. And his backers, Henry Ford's, said, you know what, let's try making a big luxury car like what the Seldenites want and what Elam wants, and maybe that'll appease them and they'll drop the case and we'll be fine and we can just go on with our lives. Well, Henry Ford himself was totally against the idea. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I want to fight him. But, the money said you're going to do it. And so it was Harold Wills who designed their Model K. Now, this was a true luxury car. I mean, big, huge, straight six-cylinder engines. I think it was like 6 liters, putting out, some 60, 70 horsepower. And Harold, he connected it to a rather wimpy 2-speed epicyclic transmission that could not at all handle the torque of this engine. And so it was quite literally designed to fail. It came out in 1906, and when it came out, I mean, it was a fast car. I mean, certainly a Model K. I mean, it was a typical luxury vehicle like you would, see at the time, in Europe and elsewhere, and, in America for that matter. But you would have to gingerly, carefully bring this thing up to any speed, because if you put too much throttle into it, you're going to rip your transmission apart. To me, it's the perfect parade car, because it's a big, powerful luxury car. It's a Ford. Nobody's heard of it. I think they made less than 200 of the things, and they're beautiful. And you can put the mayor in the back at the local parade and just go at about 2 miles an hour, because frankly, you don't want to drive this thing any faster than that or you'll break it apart. So I just love how, Harold Wills and Ford, worked together to appease the money and still, went on to, of course, make the Model T and win the case on appeal and everything else. So I just like that car, and yeah, I would totally dig driving one of those things. Okay, so that's our questions, but I did promise that I would have some absurd silliness. Well, this is pretty darn absurd, okay? And I debated whether I was going to do an episode about this guy, but I think, you know what, no, this is just silly. And I'm talking about Uriah Smith. Now, Uriah Smith lived in Michigan, specifically in Battle Creek, but still, I mean, Michigan, Detroit, cars were all over the place there. And he was a Seventh-day Adventist preacher. He was not an engineer. He was not a car designer. None of that. He was a preacher. And In 1899, he decided that he was going to design his own car. And here was the thought that he had. It was that cars were being seen on the roads at that time. This is, Michigan of 1899. And they were spooking the horses. So he went, you know what? I'm going to design a car that the horses won't be scared of. And he created the Horsey Horseless in 1899. Now, take a look at this thing. There is a carved wooden horse head sticking out of the front of the car. Now, the idea was the horse head was hollow, so it could also be used as the gas tank. And since now the car looked like a horse, the horses would not be spooked by this. Like I said, he was not an engineer. Obviously, he wasn't much into animal husbandry either, because horses weren't spooked by the look of a car. They were spooked by the noise of it. And so what you basically had was a car that definitely would still spook the horses, and at the same time make you, the driver, and whoever's in it, look like a complete idiot. And so this car obviously did not sell well. It's debatable whether beyond his patent. Yes, he actually patented this. Whether he made one beyond the patent prototype or anything, but still, it exists. Uriah Smith and the Horsey Horseless. that is... Okay, there are some dumb things that have been done in the automotive world. That is on pretty close to the top of the list. Okay, so that's the silliness, but hey, check out this shout out. Okay, I'm a native of Southern California, and growing up back in the 70s and early 80s, and family excursions and vacations, we'd go to all sorts of different places all over Southern California, Western Arizona, even in Nevada, etc. And so there is a channel that does this, and they give you the history, okay? And it's a really cool channel. Check it out. We're talking about Sidetrack Adventures. What these folks do is, as I mentioned, they're going out to historical places, very obscure ones often, but they don't just say, hey, here's a walk through the, down the path, and here's a rock, and here's a monument, and here's the ruins of something. No. They go into the history behind it. Why is it there? Who are the people involved? And, and how it, over time, and changes in the environment, or whether that's, the natural environment or the civil environment, how they got to the condition that they're in. It is a fascinating channel, whether you are a native of Southern California or not. If you're just interested in history, and, whether it's Old West, other industries, whatever. Great channel. Check it out. Link in the description. Go there, like, and subscribe. You know the routine. So that's what we have for the Old Garage this time, and we will see you next time. Peace.